She was like, come get dinner with me. She's not alone at the table. And I'd never seen like her husband with her. And then it just pretty seamlessly transitioned into, no, hang out with us. Hung out with them, like the bar. And then it was sort of like a couple hours later.
What up?
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Oh my God, you have a face?
Shocking, right?
I know.
I almost kind of forgot from time to time.
For fuck's sake, I saw your penis well before I saw your face.
Yeah, no, trust me. I could. Oh, God. This is like so real all of a sudden. Anyway, right.
You're like, oh shit, the podcast is happening.
My God, my face, and I'm on a podcast right now. This is too many things in too few months. Right? No. Yeah, it's been. I mean, obviously made everything a lot easier. Definitely, kind of like made it super clear how hard I was making life for myself. Like the instant I did something with my face in it for the first time, I was like, oh wow. I was just like walking around with 1,000 pounds of chains on, like dragging myself down for no reason. Yeah, but right.
People were like, is he the man in the iron mask? Is he just Dr. Doom hiding?
No, the funniest thing about it though was like going to like expos and stuff and having to like introduce myself to people of like, oh no, we've been mutuals for a while. Like, I'm not just some like fan lurking around or something, or like Cammie would be talking to somebody and like I would just kind of be like standing behind her, like and I can only just imagine what people would think, like, oh, who's this guy just like eavesdropping on this conversation? Like, can he like leave us, like whatever? And then if like whatever happened, they move away and I didn't like get a chance to introduce myself. It's like, what am I going to do? Like, oh no, by the way, you actually know who I am, this, that, and the other thing. Like pull up your Twitter, like look at my tattoos. It's like,
if I whip my dick out, will you recognize me?
Yeah, right. For sure. Please.
So what was the big decision to be faceless in the first place?
When I first got exposed to OnlyFans, I was actually in the Army. And so it was kind of just like, by the time when I started my OnlyFans, I already knew I was getting out of the Army. But it was, that was plain and simple. Like, I'm making this way too long an answer. I was in the Army and had an OnlyFans briefly overlapped with that. So I was faceless for that period of time, for that reason specifically. And then when I got out, it was just kind of like I'd already kind of got the ball rolling. I was just doing a lot of solo content. Things were working. I guess in a sense, I almost felt like de-incentivized to worry about a face reveal because things were like going okay. And so I just let it keep going okay and didn't really think too hard about it. But it became clear pretty quickly how limiting it was. So even as I was like feeling pretty good about what I was doing, it was still, every once in a while something would happen and it would just be like, and then I would think back to myself like, well, why am I still faceless? And it's like, I've already, I've got these tattoos. They're not overly meaningful, but like they're pretty identifiable on the spectrum of tattoos. And yet nobody has ever, identified me via my tattoos on the street. And it's just like, things along those lines, as far as I'm putting out like promotional content and TikToks and Reels and everything's on Instagram except for my face. And it's like, if you saw me next to the faceless pic, it's not like it would be
it's like
a toss up as to whether or not that's him.
It's like, it's trying to Clark Kent Superman it. No, not so much.
No, not at all. But so as I came to realize, it's like, as much as I was putting my body out there, and how, anybody who saw me in person could have made that connection pretty readily. It just kind of made me less worried about it. And I was like, it's limiting me. Obviously when I was just doing solo content, it didn't really matter. But then I'm like wanting to do collab content. And it's like, if someone doesn't want to work with a faceless male talent, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Oh no, like, you can trust me. Like, I don't know, because I don't want to like jump to conclusions about things that they've gone through. But it's like every once in a while that would maybe come up and it would just be like, okay, that's kind of a loss, but like not the end of the world. But then it was like, the more I would think about it, I was like, I don't need to be faceless. So why am I taking the loss?
Exactly.
Ever. As rare as it was, it's like, why would I tolerate it?
There's been a bunch of discourse over the last year of faceless male creators and female sex workers being like, oh, you're not as committed to being a sex worker as we are.
For sure. And like, nobody ever said that to my face, but it is kind of like, how a part of this industry do I want to be? Do I want to just be somebody that people like, oh, how do I want to word this? Kind of like lost my own train of thought right there. But like, I mean, do I always want to be like worried about sharing that perception with the handful of kind of like, I don't want to say bad eggs. I mean, like, I don't know, like, but
No,
for all
there are definitely
intents
some
and purposes-
bad.
yeah,
there are
right.
some
Okay,
bad eggs out
I'm
there.
not trying to like, I mean, I wouldn't even know anything specific. So yeah, bad eggs, like just in.
I mean, people did not come to that rationale for no reason.
Ultimately, right. If you are making content like this and you don't want to have your face showing, it's not that much of a leap for someone to maybe be suspicious that you're hiding something.
Yeah.
Right. And even if you're not, it's like, well, do you have to be faceless, or are you just being faceless because you don't think people would work with you if they saw your face? Or, are you worried that like showing your face would betray you to the rest of your life in a way that makes you unwilling to commit to it? Or are you really trying to do this for good reasons and make cool content with people and be like a positive part of people's experience as they're making their own content? And yeah, I mean, like I said, I never really had any like super awkward experiences due to my facelessness, but I also attribute that to definitely it's nice to have been with Cammie, because it's like, I mean, at the very least, she's with me on purpose. She's credible. Her face is out.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, if she's with me and the people that I've worked are still friends with her after working with me, it's sort of like, I mean, I never had to worry. I never worried too much about it, but at the end of the day, it was like, why?
Well, exactly. And
why?
it was kind of a weird dynamic. It's like, well, half this partnership is way out in the open.
As out in the open as you can.
Right. And the other half's like, well, body's out there.
Well, right. And it goes back to your point. It's like, does he really want to do this?
Yeah.
Because then that is kind of a reflection on her if she's with someone who is still seeing this as like either a hobby or something that they're like just dabbling
or just doing it to get laid or some shit.
Oh my God, that's like the weirdest. I totally get that people do that, but it's like, I feel like this is such a ridiculously logistically complicated way to get laid. I mean, I guess unless you just have a lot of money to throw at it and you
Yeah, but if you have a lot of money to throw at it, why not just pay for full service workers?
100%. Like that, right. Yeah. The whole like discourse about like making content as a way to have access to sex, it just seems like such a psychotic way to get laid. I mean, I get it and people do it, and I hate that people have to deal with people that have done it for that reason, but it's just like, I feel like you can like tell when someone's doing that. There've got to be other like red flags about their personality. I don't know. It's like,
oh no, I definitely think there is. Because it's just like, you're really gonna go through all the hassle of either buying gear, trying to like present that you have a professional fucking set,
100%, yeah,
and then just do this. Like, just go out and make use of a full service worker, bro.
For sure, yeah, right. I mean, at least you got to hope they're at least making good content. I could only imagine what the deal would be if like not only was it just for that, but they're also not putting out like a good scene. It's like,
well, maybe they're just doing it's like, well, I get a tax break to get laid now.
Oh God,
they're just doing it for the tax write-off.
Yeah, right. What a fucking wacky. What a time to be alive at the end of the day. I mean, people getting out there spending thousands of dollars on camera equipment instead of just, you know, developing any person to person, like interpersonal skills.
Whoa. That's a lot to expect.
No, trust me. And I definitely, you know, I'm not like the least awkward person, but I also don't know how I would necessarily live with myself if I knew that was the only way that I was ever getting laid. I mean, that might be a little bit strong, I guess.
Oh,
whatever. But
oh my God, you're gonna offend the guys that are, you know, setting up fake shoots to try to get laid.
Oh no,
I don't think that's a demo you have to worry about offending.
No, you're right. It's not. I'm definitely not overly worried about that. How would they approach me if they weren't willing to show their face in order to approach me? I guess
they come to a convention like this, like, fuck you, man.
Yeah,
fuck you.
And I'd still probably recognize them from some aspect of what they're wearing or how they're talking or something.
It's one of those things where like, you got to be in or you got to be out. Like, you can't just dip your toes into this shit.
Sure. I feel like, I mean, with the OnlyFans the evolution of OnlyFans as an aspect of the adult industry, I definitely see why people think you can. But right, I mean, at the end of the day, you're either not going to make enough money to have it have been worthwhile because you didn't commit fully to it, or you're gonna somehow end up making enough money even though you weren't committed fully to it, but you're just kind of like, the more people you meet, the less like you'll have anything in common with them. I mean, anybody that's really doing it, and then all of a sudden you're just sort of like, oh yeah, but I still have my day job. And it's like, okay, like I like, especially compared to people that like kind of, if they ever felt like they like had to get into this, or like this wasn't just like a fun, quirky decision that they made to like, oh, look at me, I'm going to be naked on the internet. Like, I can definitely see how that would rub people the wrong way too. I mean,
But it's one of those things where, like, the moment you make the decision, for whatever your reasons are, it's there forever. Like,
for sure.
you can't just be like, well, I did, it was a fun thing. It's not like some crazy girls' weekend you had, and it's just like, woo!
Right,
no
yeah.
one's gonna ever know about that. It's like, no. It's gonna be on the internet for fucking ever.
Forever.
One scene or a million scenes, you're gonna still have to suffer the negative consequences if you try to go back to the real world.
No, 100%. Yeah.
The shit isn't a protected class.
Right.
100% your employer can be like, you did what? Nah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's funny too, because it's like the more you immerse yourself in this scene, I feel like you almost can kind of like, the more people you surround yourself with, the where it is that what their normal is. I feel like you can almost like catch yourself trying to convince yourself that like, oh, it's 2024. Who would really care anymore? But it's like, no, for sure people still care. So yeah, and then right, it's like if you're just 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're lying to yourself, but you're just making it weird. And then right, you've taken all this risk for nothing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I guess it's an attractive potential. So it attracts everyone that thinks that it might be easier than it is too. So I mean, they think like, oh, well, I'm going to start this and I'm going to get going, and it's just going to be this windfall of cash, and then I won't have to worry about it.
Right. Like,
and that they can be non-committal in the meantime, because by the time they have to be committal, it'll have justified itself somehow.
Of course, because that's just how it goes. So, like, people just hand you money, and then it's like, oh, now I have to do this for real.
Right.
Just
you have your first bad month, and it's like, oh wait, this wasn't just to the moon forever.
Right.
That's crazy.
Holy shit, crypto bottomed out.
Yeah, right.
How many hours a week are you spending on your own promotion?
I mean, in a day, as much as I would spend at any other job. I mean, because even if it's not constant, I mean, it's not like, you clock in at 9 and you clock out at 5, but you probably accumulate more than 8 hours in a day worth of worrying about it, thinking about it, tinkering with things, strategizing what kind of stupid TikTok trend you want to find, running that TikTok trend, realizing you look like shit while you do it. So then you've got to redo it a bunch of times. You do that for a couple hours before you give up and pick a different trend. And then you've burned a whole day. And sometimes you've created something great, and other days you just really feel like you kind of wasted the day. But at the end of the day, it is all what you have to do, because if you don't do it, it's never going to get, I mean, that sounds really dumb. If you don't do it, it's never going to get done. But that is like,
that's the reality of it.
That's the reality.
I got to know, how many stupid TikTok dances are sitting on your phone that have never been released?
I have never done the dances.
Oh, that's not the trend oh, okay. I see how it is.
No, right. Yeah, right. I don't know. Well, okay. But bear in mind, I have only been doing TikToks with my face in it since May, right? So my whole TikTok presence has just been like text trends cropped to my nose, because I couldn't, do anything else. So what other choice did I have? And that was its own.
I mean, you could have done a headless dance.
I could have, but I also just, I was born painfully without rhythm, I suppose.
Well, yeah, but that could go viral too.
No, you're right. I mean, trust me, I maybe would have been better off at times if I had just committed to the dances, but
you still can. We could film one today.
Oh God,
we have multiple cameras. We could do it.
Phenomenal. Okay, I guess if it's not now, it might still be never. And I guess if nobody ever puts me on the spot for it, I might never try to pull the trigger.
You're like, oh, this isn't going to be awkward. Oh shit, he's trying to make me dance.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm happy to talk about my history and everything like that. You're going to make me fucking dance? No, this is.
Oh yeah, nothing's really off limits. I'm not really sure what we could talk about that I would feel uncomfortable with. Oh, anyway, yeah.
20 minutes into the show, I found it.
Yeah, that's it. Right. Yeah, I don't know. No, but that's it. I mean, you've got to like, even not doing the dances, which I just, again, I don't know if how they would have ever gone. You've got to suspend so much self-doubt to really do it to an effective degree. But it's like, I don't know. It's funny though, because at the end of the day, it's like people are doing that and not having an OnlyFans too. It's like, so you're at least doing it to push people into a money-making avenue that like is worth your while and is benefiting you in a tangible, long-term way. And people over here are just doing it for a laugh. So like, why are you judging yourself too hard about it?
I don't know if they're just doing it for laughs or they're convinced that they'll be the next TikTok star, and then this is their 100%. Way that they will make money. And
yeah, right. You at
least have a tangible product to sell. They're on a hope and a prayer.
No, 100%. I definitely think that like the most embarrassing thing you can do on the internet is act like a celebrity, but not even be selling nudes. Like before you are one, you know, I mean, if you ever become one, to be acting like that, but then not even have anything that you're like returning to.
What do you consider acting like a celebrity? Like just showing off wealth beyond your means, or
no, not necessarily like that. I guess more on the end of the spectrum of just like acting like an influencer, like going and being places.
Oh, demanding free meals and shit.
Kind of, and just like acting very like high on your horse about like I guess being too arrogant about the content you're making. I mean, because it's one thing if it's like, oh, they at least don't take themselves too seriously. And that's more likable anyway, because it seems more authentic. But when the person's out there like just taking themselves way too seriously and you're like, what does this person even do? And you click through their thing and all it is just like a discount code for a supplement company or something. And it's like
flat tummy tea.
Yeah, right. And it's like, oh man, they're really doing all that. Just
you're really cocky selling laxatives, lady.
100%. Yeah, I don't know. Who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, good for them. Whatever.
Well, yeah,
they're trying, but
there's ways to go about it. Like,
sure,
I don't fault them for making the money. Like, make the fucking money. You don't have to be a prick about it.
No, for sure. Right. I guess whatever. I'm suspicious how much money some of them are even making on it. It's just a lot of effort to then really not be getting anything in return. And I get it. It's like you have to do it until it returns something. But if all you did was sell a nude or two, you might really be doing something already. And
wait, are you trying to encourage me to sell nudes? I'm a podcaster, sir.
Yeah,
I don't make a ton of money from this. Or you were just like,
just think of the potential.
Matt, dick pic. You could just put a dick pic. Are you just trying to, are you trying to turn me out right now? What is happening here?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I would never dream of doing anything like that. I wouldn't want to.
There's a giant smile on his face on the audio for the audio audience. He's just gritted ear to ear on this. I'm like, I didn't think you were going to make me uncomfortable during the, I'm fucking around.
Oh my God.
No, I've passed on that on multiple occasions.
Sure, right.
And the only reason I passed on it at this point is just like, back when I really was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and like just doing production and fucking had a corporate day job. Yeah, it was just like, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, there's no like logistical reason for me not to perform except that I'll probably fail. Like, I know the reality of what goes into the job.
Sure, right.
But I've been saying no so long, it feels hypocritical to be like, yeah, I'll do that now.
Now I'll do it.
Yeah, over a decade in, yeah, why not?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not talking about people ultimately that are actually doing something. Like you are providing a product. You have a podcast.
I mean, it depends on who you ask about that.
Yeah, maybe. But more specifically, just like doing thirst traps. Obviously, if the person is giving like they're teaching like a skill or they're like providing insight on something, I'm not shitting on them for putting their content out and being like confident about it. The thing I'm mostly confused about is the person that does exclusively thirst traps. And then is just like, I guess when I talk about thinking they're a celebrity, it's like thinking that people just want to see your thirst trap.
I mean,
without then being like, whatever. Oh my God. I don't know. It's like,
well, but and in a lot of those cases, they get reinforcement on that shit because there's dudes that are just like falling for the thirst trap.
For sure. No, 100%. And good for them. If they're managing to make it work like that and there is nothing on the other side and the dudes just fall for the thirst trap, that is absolutely good for them. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right. Like, because dudes are stupid.
Right.
Dudes are, at the end of the day, we're stupid. Like, I've been a stupid dude. I'm sure you've been a stupid dude in your day.
Sure. Why? Yeah, right. 34 years in,
Yeah.
I've had my moments.
Anyone come to mind?
Starting an OnlyFans, probably. You know what I mean?
How did that conversation go with Cammy, by the way? How did
Well, the conversation didn't really go. It was sort of like before I met her, I'd heard of OnlyFans, but really, I mean, as a as a joke, like in memes, you know, like I mean, I'm talking about like in 2019, like not recently. But at that point in time, it's like I feel like the odd OnlyFans creator would have like a meme come out about them, and you'd see it and you'd be like, okay, like maybe two people have made money doing that. I don't know. So it's like I was aware of what OnlyFans was, but absolutely didn't take it seriously. Nobody in my life was doing it. I had no frame of reference for how even like feasible it was to get into that kind of thing. And then I met Cammy and she had like already been doing it for a couple years, and I was like, and doing it well. And by the time I met her, she was, you know, at a pretty high level. And that was a pretty like eye opening. Oh, this is like super real. Like, not only is this like not a joke, this is like a legitimate career decision that someone can, like, it was just, I mean, like, again, I didn't have any frame of reference before that. No reason to expect it was like a viable decision for a person to make. But there she was doing it right before me. I mean, you can't, you know, the proof was right in front of me. You couldn't argue with it.
You could see the receipts.
Yeah, exactly. And then so, you know, that was definitely like, okay, you have my attention about it. Like, and then, you know, that kind of evolved into the conversation of like, well, would you be in a scene? And that's kind of pretty much when I almost immediately caved and became her stunt cock, more or less. Well, literally. I mean, and that's all I was for a little bit, which was cool. Again, it was like, oh shit, I'm like, I'm involved. It's you know.
Did she give you a cut, or were you just stunt cocking free of charge for being that, you know, happy to be
For
there?
the thrill. Yeah, right. No, yeah, that was really.
Cammy owes you some fucking residuals. Cammy, you owe him some residuals.
Absolutely not owe me anything. Yeah, no. I know. But no, and it was I kind of like stepped away from it for a little bit, and then I realized, you know, I was still in the army at the time. And so that was like no even mention of me. I don't even think I was the person. I wasn't even the person tagged in a lot of those videos. It was somebody else. Some other name that she would use from time to time. So I stepped away from it from a little bit, and then for a little bit, just because I was like, okay, well, that was fun, you know, back to reality, more or less, because it was still like, okay, that's great for her, but I don't have any like frame of reference for how to make money on the internet, how to like be even in the headspace of an influencer, much less like attempt to embody that to any degree. And it just, I mean, she was just doing it. I didn't want to be like, hey, you know, mentor me. It was like, it was where we were dating, you know? So it was like, I also didn't want to come off like that. But then I realized I was getting out of the army, and it was sort of like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I, you know, think back to like other jobs that I've done in the past, which I mean, mostly like personal training and like seasonal work type stuff.
Wait, were you out here picking fruit?
No. No.
I know. I'm fucking.
Yeah. After I graduated college, I kind of like, I was like, oh, I'll take a gap year. And that gap year turned into several years of just like doing, I mean, great. Like I said, personal training, working at like summer camps, like that type of thing. It was cool. I liked it. It was fun, but it wasn't like meaningful.
Right.
I mean,
there were jobs, not careers.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it. That's the best way to put it, for sure. Thinking like, you know, well, how long could I feasibly continue to do these types of things? Well, that mindset resulted in me having the most random side mission of my entire life into the military. As I'm sitting there having this like low key existential quarter life crisis about like, I'm not using my degree for anything. Like,
what is your degree in?
International relations with a focus in Russian and post-Soviet like geopolitics, like more or less.
So wait a minute, were you going to join the CIA or some shit?
Well, no, not. I mean, when I picked that major, my family's from the East Coast, around DC. When I was much younger, I like had it in my head, like, oh, I'll work for the government. That'll be neat. And then, as I became totally disillusioned with the government and absolutely disinterested in, it's like a weird, like, I'm going to contradict myself in a second, but as I became totally disillusioned with the government and absolutely like disinterested in, being a cog in that machine, I still kind of like didn't know what else I wanted to study. So that just kind of like the momentum carried me into that. And then, like I said, I joined the Army, which was like the most counter to what I just said.
How old were you when you enlisted?
29.
Oh shit!
It was at the beginning of COVID.
Did you have to like get a congressman to sign off on you being that age?
No.
I don't know.
I was super fit. I mean, like there was no reason for them not to. The age limit's higher than that, higher than you'd expect.
Oh, I'm way old and they won't take me, so I'm happy.
Well, yeah, and trust me, it's not all it's cracked up to be, believe it or not. But right. So anyway, I was in the midst of this kind of quarter life crisis. Was sort of like, oh, I'll join the Army. That'll at least be something. And that's, I don't know. It's like back then. I think back to it. It's like you're still kind of stuck in your vaguely like traditional mindsets of like, what are viable career choices? Like what could I do that my peers and my family would like respect as a decision? And I mean, it's not like my family really cared about me joining the military, but it's sort of like I didn't know what else to do. I'd already kind of reckoned with the reality of a bachelor's degree, not just like resulting in a job the way you're told when you grow up.
Right. It's like, oh, this is just results in debt. Cool.
Yeah, debt, and nobody cares, and everybody has one, and it's not really that meaningful. Right. So I'd already kind of gone through that kind of like crushing blow, and so joining the military was at least like, well, I like to be fit, I like to be active, and at least it's roughly related. And COVID had just started, so nobody else was hiring. I was working at a resort as a personal trainer at the time, and obviously nobody was going to resorts during COVID. So I mean, it was the only. I mean, in a weird way, it was the only one. They were the only people that were hiring. So
I'm an OnlyFans.
Yeah, right. But at the time, again, I was not even close to something that I maybe at that time I still hadn't even heard of it, honestly. Towards the end of that, I ended up getting hurt really badly.
What the fuck?
And had already met Cammie at that point. So now the OnlyFans thing's kind of in my head. I'm like, as soon as I realized like, oh, you're going to get out of the Army, like you're not going to have to worry about it anymore. But what are you going to do? Do I still care about trying to use my degree? No, that ship has sailed. I'm not worried about that anymore. That's what this decision, that was the result of this. And I'd already seen it be interesting and fun. And, I've always wanted something where I could have like a creative outlet and get to like, make art in one way or another. Like I've always liked to paint. Like photography's always been something that's interested me. But like, I mean, I was into painting, but like photography, especially, it's like, I'm not just going to go buy a camera and commit to it.
Why not?
It's a lot of money. I don't know. It's for something I don't know if I was going to be good at or really like more than just the idea of, you know what I mean? And so that checked those boxes, like this kind of interesting creative outlet. And as far as like the idea of like doing porn, it was like, well, I mean, I was already like in the Army, kind of like psychologically preparing to do combat,
right,
and deal with all of the psychological fallout and potential for horrific experiences that kind of go with that. So as I'm thinking about like, oh, is there like any kind of ethical gray area with porn that I'm worried about? And it's like, I mean, I've consumed porn my whole life. It's like, how much of a hypocrite would I be if I had an issue with it at this point? And what was I just getting ready to do? Like, I'm not saying that that's not like a necessary job and somebody has to do it. But as I'm kind of realizing that like, well, but does it have to be me?
No, not so much.
Probably not. But what was I getting ready to do? And on the flip side of that coin, like what is porn? I mean, because people act like it's this like ethical gray area and morally kind of like treacherous,
But it's not.
Of course it's not. It's a bunch of consenting adults making a product for adults to consume. And right. I mean, kind of what I would tell myself, or not what I would tell myself, but like the metaphor that I kind of came up with is like, is porn a vice? It can be, sure. But if I went and started a microbrewery, if I like went into microbrewery and started making alcohol, everyone would be like, oh, wow, how quirky, how interesting. Like, what a neat little like job that this guy got into. Someone could drink themselves to death on it right away. You know what I mean? So it's like everything so
fucking sugar, caffeine,
100%.
They're all fucking vices. You can be like, I'm just doing a little roaster and like, and then it's like, oh, you are all wildly addicted to my socially acceptable product.
Exactly.
It's all the level of social acceptability of the product, not that how much harm it actually does. I'm pretty sure porn does less harm than caffeine or sugar,
and much less harm than any more dramatic vice than those things.
Whoa, don't talk about my booze.
I'm not again, it all has to do with responsible consumption and, being within reason. I'm not shitting on you for drinking. I'm not shitting on anybody necessarily for having a vice.
No.
Life is not.
Who wants a raw dog life?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Life is not super fun all the time, and a little vice here and there takes the edge off. And that's fine.
For fuck's sake, if we weren't meant to consume it, it would be poisonous to us.
Well, we want to split hairs. It certainly is. But
lethally poisonous to us.
Yeah, no, right, 100%.
Castor beans fucking murder you.
Yeah, no, I totally.
You have receptors for this shit in your brain.
100%.
We've evolved to. I'm just trying to justify my horrible position.
No, and honestly, I'm just biased because I stopped drinking when I was 24. Only. Not for any exotic or tragic reason. I just started getting these like 48-hour long hangovers.
Ugh.
And it was just like, I couldn't even enjoy being drunk when I was drunk because I was so like pre-anxious about like how bad the hangover was going to be the next day. So I just stopped.
What would you drink? What was your liquor of choice in those days?
Either whiskey or vodka. But like, I didn't personally ever feel like a significant like affinity for one or the other. Like I got drunk. Like I always thought it was kind of like, not that I don't believe people. It's such a subjective experience, but I could never be like, oh, tequila makes me feel this way and whiskey makes me feel that way. And vodka, it's like, I'm just drunk.
Well, that's a little psychosomatic. Like,
no, yeah, for sure.
The different alcohol types. Now, the quality of the alcohol definitely has some physiological
100%.
Because it's like, oh, there's a reason this shit is fucking $10 a bottle.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Like, it's full of impurities or sugar or things that will make you horrible.
Yeah.
Feel fucking horrible. But I actually want to dial it back a little bit. Was it like a near-death experience or?
Oh, no, not like a near-death experience.
Okay, if you weren't attended to immediately, could you have died there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But it definitely, like, if I hadn't had that like total like break in momentum. Ultimately, like I said, like being in the military was not for me, but I had all this momentum of like, well, it's going well. I'm graduating all these courses, everything's kind of going.
Commanding officers are telling you you're doing a good job.
As soon as I lost that momentum though, I was like, I don't want to try again.
Okay.
And that combined with the fact that I was like reckoning with this, well, you're still in the military. You've got to, it was just a very it was a rough headspace to be in. And I definitely consider myself super thankful that I was handled well compared to other other stories I've heard of people that have been in the military. And depending on your unit, it's like they can just not believe you. They don't want to send you to medical. They definitely don't want to send you to psychology because they've got to check
paperwork and shit.
Yeah, right. And somebody's got to stay late, and some sergeant's got to handle you and take you. And
well, do you think your age had to play in that too? Because like if you were somebody,
definitely didn't have to.
But if you were some 18-year-old, do you think you would have gotten the same treatment?
My age. And the fact that I'd already been an adult for a while and had like a worldview and had made decisions for myself for quite some time, helped immeasurably in me making the decision to go get help without feeling compelled to ask somebody for permission. In a way that, right, if you were the first adult, these are the first adults you ever met that weren't your parents, were your drill sergeants.
Or your fucking teacher in school or something.
Right, yeah, no.
Like, until you can be 18 in high school and still have to ask permission to go to the fucking bathroom.
No, 100%. No, for sure. So, no, my age had nothing administratively to do with it, but it for sure had a lot practically to do with it. But that was I don't know how I got away from no, it was not a near-death experience and all that.
I mean, these things happen. Tangents happen on this show.
Yeah, for
quite a bit.
Right. But it was also like, I mean, again, I'd already like reckoned with all of this. Like, what am I gonna, how am I gonna deal with like the psychic weight of like death and stuff like that? And having to, you know, be the person that is responsible for possibly doing something in combat, whatever. And so it's like when I'm making the decision of like, do I want to do porn? It's like, this is not even close to that difficult. I mean, it's not even worth like talking about in the same sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like it is the type of thing that people might compare in like levels of extremeness. I'm not talking about people that are in this industry I'm talking about like the average person.
Well, yeah, the average person doesn't have to really comprehend either one of those options.
Right.
The average person is going to go through their whole fucking life and never have to think about having to take someone's life, having to pull a weapon on somebody in the intent to actually use it.
Right. I feel weird even talking about it because, like I said, I was in schools the whole time. I was never put in that position. So, I mean, I had to do all of like the what if in a pretty real sense where it wasn't just like what if maybe, it was like what if no, in a couple months, that's going to be the deal. So, I mean, a much more real version of what if, but I never literally had to do it. So I feel a little bit like weird speculating too hard about it. But
it was still much more real for you than it would be for the majority of American citizens.
Sure, for sure. And at the end of the day, I think that what it really boils down to is that things like violence are obviously so normalized.
Yeah.
In entertainment, in every aspect of American culture, well, maybe Western culture, more so in America, whatever. Anyway, so
but we export most of the entertainment to the world.
Sure. So then when somebody's like making a decision as far as what do they want to do as a career, gut reaction, it's like, oh, well, being a commando or whatever, like it's just like the movies, whatever, versus how does sex and any version of what you might do with sex compare to violence in that sense? And I guess all I'm talking about is that the average person would see sex as a more extreme decision.
Yeah, well,
in a sense, because I think that people typically only think that sex is acceptable if there's some level of like shame associated with it. Not in the context of like sex, but it's just monogamous sex and they're just
like hooking up has never been shameful in my experience. Like no one has ever shamed me as a dude for hooking up.
For sure, but people would still it's a double standard for guys and girls, no question, absolutely. But all I would say to that is that even in the context of guys, people would be a little bit put off if you were too confident to like say all of the nitty-gritty details about it. So it's like, oh yeah, I got laid. And it's all high fives and that. But
well, it becomes a weird double standard because it's like if I hooked up with some random girl I'm at the bar and I get into the nitty-gritty of like the hookup with some random at the bar, your boys will high five you on that. The minute you start talking about your partner like that,
right,
then everyone's like, whoa, I go to brunch with her, dude.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck?
Yeah, let me I think of a better way to put that, because it's like, well, I guess I'm not talking about like relatively mundane versions of sex, like hooking up, sex that like partners have, behind.
Oh, way to imply that I have mundane sex on
hookups. I'm talking about on the spectrum of sex acts.
I'm fucking hurt here.
Oh,
you're just like,
that's not what I meant at all. I'm talking.
I mean, you're right, but goddamn,
I'm talking about like hookup sex, regular standard hookup, and like relationship sex versus stuff like swinging, stuff like being non-monogamous, stuff like women being horny, period, and wanting to have sex. Like things like that, I feel like they're only roughly acceptable if there's some degree of shame associated with that, by which I really specifically mean, they're swingers. Like,
That's weird.
How weird,
Yeah.
like, right. And they don't maybe talk about it too much. Or like this couple like film themselves having sex, but they never would talk about it. They'd never let anyone see it. Like, or, oh, they get laid a lot, but like, kind of like with this like air of, because they have something kind of like wrong with them almost. I don't know. It's funny enough though, because one of the weird things that I got exposed to when I was in the army was that swinging is like a real, super real thing in the military. And like, not just swinging, but like in the context of like dudes like would go to deploy and they would like be like, okay, you're going to have sex with my wife while I'm gone. So that way I know who's fucking her and I know she's not cheating. So it was like a weird, but anyway, not that that has really anything to do with it, but I like.
Well, no, that's an interesting dynamic that like most people don't know about.
No, for sure. 100%. And I know that like,
did anyone ask you to do that job for them?
no, because again, I was never really like in.
Well, yeah, but someone else was deployed. You could have had a friend that
But I was, but I, no. No, I had much more interesting sexual experiences when I was working at that resort, but I can get to that later. But no, right. So it's like, so I'd kind of been exposed, like, oh, I'm in this very traditional, like it's the military. It's, these are, people that have made very like conservative, good decisions that would be respectable. And these people are like, okay, well, first off, I mean, you're going through it and it's like half these people like, get broken up with because they were cheated on during basic training. And these guys are getting, divorce papers mailed to them during basic training. And you're like, holy shit. And then you get in and it's like, that's the big joke about the military is that as soon as you join, you're going to lose everyone, blah, blah, blah. And then once you're in, that as soon as you have to deploy, it's like, they're just going to cheat on you. Your kid's not going to really be yours. It's like, you need paternity tests and you can't trust anyone. And then I get and then right after that get exposed to this other weird like workaround that they have, which is like, oh, well, instead of being cheated on, I'll just arrange my wife to be fucked by these people so that I know about it. And then I'll fuck their wives when they're gone. And so anyway,
I'm
really
curious.
Just my first like, even though I wasn't involved in that, it was my first kind of like practical experience with like, oh, these people are swinging.
Well, I'm curious how that conversation goes up. Like, is it like you approach your wife like, so you think my boy's hot? Like, or are you cool with? Like,
well, no.
Or do you or
no? There are like swinger communities. Like I know on military bases, it's like it's as simple as like, oh, if they have like a pink flamingo on their front lawn. Like there's like the upside down pineapple thing, and, that people are pretty familiar with. Like there's like, they'll put like flags out basically.
Well, yeah, but just because you're swinging doesn't mean you want to fuck everyone.
No, for sure. But I'm sure you build a little community of like,
I mean, that's definitely possible. I was just, I'm curious how that conversation goes. It's just like, oh, I think, your wife's hot. So I'm going to, bro, bang my girl while I'm out.
Well, right. And I guess what all I'm getting at is maybe it's not like arranged in such a cold way like that. But if they're the type of people that would want to do that, I'm sure that they would be aware of how to get involved with the on-base swingers.
I know, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
I know, trust me. It's I don't know. I just know about the systems. I don't know firsthand about the intricacies of how the system works.
You're like, I don't know how this is implemented. I just know the system's here.
Exactly. Right. But right. So anyway, and that, like, again, it was just like this at the time meant nothing to me. It was just like this weird little factoid about the military that I had.
Were you single going in?
Yeah, I was single going in. And pretty much meant to keep it that way. For a while, but then it's like, you're in training for so long. And I did have, like I said, I had a fair amount of autonomy. I could kind of come and go as I wanted. They treated you like adults, which it was cool in that sense. I mean, as far as military experiences go, I would not have rather had a different one. Even though I really, obviously I didn't want the result. I didn't want to, whatever. Because I wasn't, treated with kid gloves and treated like, a totally like inept child.
Your child, have this rifle.
Right. But so then it's like, you're in that, you kind of have like a little bit more freedom than you expect. And then it's like, well, I actually, I haven't been laid in a while, so that might be kind of nice. And then it's like, you get on the dating apps and then, military towns, I'll tell you, are absolutely the worst place to be on dating apps.
Did you have a profile picture in uniform?
No. Nothing like that. Absolutely not. Because I didn't want to attract the type of person that wanted that, right? Which does make it a little bit ironic that I ended up with someone who does have a big presence with the military.
Oh yeah, she's about that life.
100%. But I think a lot of people maybe like assume that it like has anything to do with me. And me being in the military is like totally incidental. Absolutely. I'm not sure it was like a big aspect of why. Again, I didn't have a picture in where.
How did you two meet?
We like matched on a dating app. The way she tells it, we matched on a dating app and never met. And then matched again on a different dating app, which I remember. I don't fully remember the first time.
You ghosted her?
I didn't ghost her. I was using dating apps as like a means to pass the time. I didn't really have like strong intentions of going and meeting someone.
You're out here window shopping.
So we match on a different app some months later. She was like, let's go to a baseball game, and in some minor league baseball game in North Carolina. And I see that message, and I'm just sort of like, I know what and now it's funny to think back on, because it's like, she was like, oh, he's a guy, I'll take him to a sports thing. Cause I wasn't from there. And she had like she'd lived in North Carolina for a while. And she was studying occupational therapy near the military base that I was stationed at the time. So she's like, oh, I'll take him to a baseball game. And I see that, and I'm like, I do not fucking care about baseball. I was like, this is going to suck. I was like, low key, I'm like, she better be cool, because I do not want to go to this baseball game. Anyway, we show up to this baseball game, and funny thing is we end up hitting it off because we both like do not want to be there. Like we're both like sensory overloaded by the noise of it. Neither of us care about baseball. We kind of like realized luckily quickly that like she had just kind of made that call because she thought it would be something I was interested in. And I only said yes because I'm like, well, she's hot, right? Like
things we do as dudes.
There's worse ways to spend an afternoon in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And Fayetteville, North Carolina, fun fact, is like always top 10 in like STD statistics. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, she looks like she is responsible. Like and not everyone does. So I'm like, at least at face value, it looks like if I got laid, I wouldn't.
How do you snap judge it like this girl looks responsible? How do you snap judgment that?
From a lifetime of never getting an STD. And just feeling more confident about my decision making than a responsible person necessarily should. I think it's funny because it's like, I mean, I never had an STD. I also like never got tested before I started doing this. But I mean, it's just funny to think back on like how many bullets I for sure dodged.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because now it's like I'm never more than like 10 days without getting a test. And I'm more paranoid about it than I've ever been.
Well, you should. Right? You should be more paranoid.
100%. No, but it's just funny to think back about how not a thought it was. And then when I like match, and I mean, before I say the next thing, to say me and Cammie are non-monogamous.
You don't say.
So when right. Well, in real life too, not just on camera.
Well, no, I know, but
yeah. But so now it's like when if I want to go see someone or I match with someone, and it's like, I'll bring that up. It's like a rude reminder of not only how not a part of most people's lives getting tested is, how offended they get when you imply that you would like them to be tested, or when you even bring it up. I mean, especially put it this way. If Cammie wants a guy to get tested, 9.5 times out of 10, he'll find a way to get tested.
Yeah, they'll get tested.
Get laid, right?
He's going to get tested. He's going to go to a baseball game. Like
exactly. If I ask a girl to get tested, I'm assuming too much about her, whatever.
But yeah, that's the trash seeing itself out.
100%. No, so it's not like I'm like, oh, that sucks. I wish I could have, fucked her.
Well, I mean, on some levels, it's still like she was hot. It would have been nice to fuck her, but it
also would have been nice if I didn't have to convince her to be responsible with her sexual health.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's like, oh, that's that's a big red flag.
But it's just something funny that I think about because it's like I never worried about it, and now it's like something that I'm obviously like actively, practically, and just generally concerned about. And then every once in a while I get this like reminder. I was like, oh yeah, this is like people like really don't fucking care.
No, well,
in real life, like
I've had a weird like roller coaster with that. Like, so because I had sex ed in the fucking 90s.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, if you have unprotected sex, you're just getting AIDS.
Straight up.
Straight up.
Straight up.
No condom, you're just getting AIDS.
Yeah, for sure.
So like the first time I intentionally raw dogged someone, I freaked out.
Yeah.
I 100% freaked out. And then when I realized, oh, this feels great and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I was not as responsible as I should have been for a little while there.
It's like, I think back to it because it was like, I was way more worried about getting someone pregnant than I ever was about getting an STD. So it was like, I would always use a condom, but only because I didn't want to get people pregnant, not because I was particularly worried about getting an STD.
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I used a lot of condoms, but like legitimately, like the first time, like I had a couple condoms break. I got involved with someone, like got a full on relationship because we had a condom break the first time we hooked up, and it was just like,
and that resulted in a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. That's like the weird like trappings of like rigid traditional monogamy.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, we've got to get married now.
Yeah, it's like legitimately like we hooked up once in Florida at like a convention.
Right.
The condom broke. And her and I ended up in a relationship where she moved to Chicago for me. Like,
yeah.
For you to tell me that now is like, that's insane.
Right. No kidding. Yeah.
Insane.
But at the time, seemed like the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's like,
no
that was so fucking scary because it's just like her and I hooked up. And I remember like, going at it, it's like, oh, you feel amazing. Popped. And then
this feels great all of a sudden.
Yeah, you feel fucking amazing.
This is crazy.
Popped, and then walked to the bathroom to like take the condom off, and it was in a ring around the base of my dick. I'm like,
yeah, right.
I just, yeah. She's like, you came in me. I'm like, yeah, I did.
I take it back. What? It's like, I was like trying to justify this, reckon with this in your head.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. But anyway, so no, how responsible did she look? I mean, compared to some of the people that you would match with around a military base, she looked super responsible. But so anyway, yeah, we went and we hung out. She was still in school. She was just kind of doing that on the side of being in school. And I was, that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to it.
If you had never swiped right, where would you have ended up?
In all seriousness, I would 100% just be back at the resort that I had worked at before. Cause that was like, there was nothing wrong with that job. I was overthinking how unrealistic that job was as a long-term career goal. Cause I could have easily just transitioned into like the corporate side of that resort, whatever. It's like, it wasn't nothing. But that was kind of another interesting, development in my like kind of sexual evolution was being at that resort because it was like you ever heard of a resort called I don't know if I can say like a resort name.
I mean, you can say whatever you want.
Fine. Yeah, it's
if
called
they send me a cease and desist, they send me a cease and desist.
Right. Yeah. I don't know cuz
you could say the rough geographic location of this resort.
It's all over the world. The one that I worked at was in Florida. I just
worked for fucking sandals?
No, it wasn't sandals. It's one people have heard of it. It's like 50-50. I don't know why I'm being so weird about it. Like I guess it's called.
What are they going to do? Sue you?
Maybe not.
No.
Probably not. It's called Club Med.
Oh my God. Club. Yes, I've heard.
Yeah, you've heard of it. Right.
Yeah, of course.
It's like 50-50. Sometimes people have heard about it. People who are over 30, higher chance that they've heard about it, it seems.
Being called out for being old again. Fuck.
Well, I'm over 32, so that's why I felt safe saying that. But Club Med has like a rich history of being like low key, like a swingers resort, right? Like one of the like old names for Club Med was like Club Bed. And it was started after World War II. And like the whole like vibe of it was just like everybody's so bummed out about World War II that we're just gonna have this like resort experience where people can be like loose and relax. And that turned into like people in Belgium, I think, just like going onto the beach side and fucking each other. And then it just kind of developed this like interesting culture of being like not overtly a sex resort, but a sex positive resort, I guess call it that. But so while I'm working there, it's like I just remember like in the orientation, it's sort of like, and this is why I guess one of the aspects of it that I'm like, would they care? It's like, well, I mean, whatever. It's not like I'm saying anything that like,
I mean, you're not looking to get rehired. It's fine.
well, that too. But it's like during the orientation, it's sort of like, don't have sex with the guests, right? But in hindsight, it's like, don't have sex with the guests, wink. And then like 2 lines later, it's like, don't say no to the guests though. And it's like wink, and then like
don't get caught having sex.
Make sure you're being, a good positive experience for the guest. Wink, wink. Because it was the interesting thing about that resort was like the employees of that resort were like very much like part of the experience. In a normal sense, it was like you were kind of like expected to like go to the bars at night and hang out with the guests. You were supposed to like do these, like get the guests involved with like do sports with them, hang out with them,
get them out of those shells, make them have a good experience,
like have dinner with the guests, like sit at their tables with them. Like you were really expected to like make friends with them. That was like a big part of it. And the people that had been going to that resort for a long time expected that and were ready for it. We're very excited about it. So every week, this new batch of people would come in like, oh, I don't remember you from last season. And you're very much like a feature of the resort in that kind of sense. And it wasn't like that overt at this particular Club Med because this was not, some Club Meds are only like 18 up. This one was not. So American families would come there with their kids. They're totally oblivious to that aspect of it. But European people would come there. And a lot of them had this vibe where they were like, they definitely knew what the deal was. And their grandparents had come there. They remembered coming there when they were little. And now they're adults coming there. And they're really wanting the Club Med experience. And it was like, and so I kind of got like, that was like the first time I had like, not the first time I had a threesome, but the first time I like had sex with someone while their partner watched. The first time I'd been in like a group sex, like you're having sex with someone while another couple is having sex next to you, kind of an experience. And it all just was very like, again, like in the context of like, oh, this is just, fun secret stuff that you're having behind closed doors. Super eye-opening. I thank that experience for kind of like contributing to my like level of comfort in my like sexuality and sexual expression and me dabbling in like my sexual, like exploring my sexuality in general.
Did the cuckolding happen first or did the group sex happen first?
The cuckolding one happened. And it was very much that. It was sort of like the wife would come to the like group fitness classes because I was a personal trainer, but I also like did the group fitness stuff. The wife would come to those. She would like, come hang out around the gym. I'd be like, I also would like lifeguard from time to time. And so she would be at the pool and she would just start talking me up. And at first I was sort of like, oh, this like European woman is hitting on me. This is sick. Right. And then she was like, come get dinner with me. And I was like, okay, great. Cause it's also like nice when it's not like when you get along with them. Cause you have to like,
yeah.
If you don't have dinner with someone, you would like be like, why aren't you having dinner with someone? So it was nice when you actually wanted to have dinner with the person. And so I go and sit down with them and it was like, and she's not alone at the table. And I'd never seen like her husband with her. So it was sort of like, oh, like, is he pissed that you've been like talking to me like this? Or so? I was ready for something to happen like that. Because again, I'm like not in that kind of headspace at that point in my life. And then it just pretty seamlessly transitioned into, no, hang out with us. He's chill. Like, and he was fun. He was cool. I hung out with them, like the bar. And then it was sort of like a couple hours later, I'm banging his wife while he's sitting in what I now know is a cuck chair. And I didn't know the term cuck chair before.
Raw or
I
protected?
started doing this. That was protected. But here's the thing. That resort literally provided condoms to the staff. So it's like, and the staff all lived on the resort. So it's like, oh, this is because we know you guys are going to fuck each other, which for sure happened. But at the same time, it was like, you just like have like we have access to condoms. Like, this is like part of it. So anyway, it's funny thinking back on it because it was very much like a don't fuck the guests unless they really want to kind of energy, you know what I mean?
They're still paying.
Exactly, right. Don't fuck the guests, but don't get a bad TripAdvisor review. Right? Like that was kind of the energy.
Oh my God, you can't lay mediocre pipe. Someone might actually review it.
For sure. No, and then the other one was like me and another staff member, and then a different couple. But anyway,
were you involved with the staff member beforehand, or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's like it was very like real world Love Island energy on the staff there, because we all lived in like staff housing, right, which was on the resort, but like we're all like in like a separate building. And like you'd have days off together. You're each other's only like outlet for non-guests, right? So you by default would end up involved with some of them. You know what I mean? Because they were really the only people that you had access to. But they're also like, it was the kind of thing where it was like when you got hired, they would like ask for your Instagram. They would want to see what you looked like. So on average, the staff was pretty good looking. So it was kind of like, why not? Like,
well, exactly.
We're all here, right?
We're all here. No one's going to be offended by having a couple orgasms together.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it was even like pretty like, I mean, interesting in hindsight how kind of like progressive the vibe was, because it was even like not very awkward when people would like stop fucking. I mean, it was cool. And in the context of what I do now, probably pretty integral in me developing this level of comfort with my like sexuality and how I viewed sex in general. Because before that, I had only ever had like regular relationships, right? Like totally rigidly monogamous, marriage being the goal type of, I grew up in the Midwest and it's like, what else is there to do? And nobody's thinking about orgies, maybe. Well,
depends on where you are in the Midwest.
Yeah, no, 100%. As soon as I say that, I'm like, absolutely, people are swinging in the Midwest. So don't get me wrong.
Where in the Midwest did you grow up?
Between Kansas and Michigan.
Okay.
So yeah.
I mean, that's the whole Midwest.
So right. So partly in Kansas, partly in Michigan, and right. So just like critically Midwestern, no matter which end of the spectrum, no matter which way you go. So no, 100% people are swinging in the Midwest, but within the context of like a regular, normal suburban upbringing, no reason to even entertain alternative lifestyles and alternative versions of relationships and stuff like that. And at that point, well, I don't even remember when the first time I would have ever heard of a word like polyamory. But I'm sure the first time I heard it, I was like, "That's weird as fuck." I don't want.
Well, they probably didn't even like the first time you heard of the concept. You probably didn't. It probably wasn't even referred to as polyamory. Like,
probably not. Well, and I remember the first time I even met somebody who was like in a polyamorous relationship. It was a very like weird. The guys in the relationship felt very like they felt like they were taking advantage of the fact that these women would let them have multiple partners more so than they were like honestly polyamorous.
Oh yeah.
So that was just like the first time I ever like even saw it. I was like, that looks kind of gross. And it was the version that they were doing. Obviously, like just happened to not be a very chill seeming version of it. So then, right. It's like, I just kind of wrote that off. I was like, okay, well, that's not for me, whatever.
Can't remember when I actually heard of polyamory, but like open relationships were like, there was no difference between open and polyamory for a very long time in my life. Like,
right.
It's like, oh no, there's a very big distinction there. And it's an important distinction.
100%. No. And it's like, I think about that. I mean, cause it's like an open relationship, and it's like, I mean, in just super general terms, it's like anybody that does porn, it's like, that's kind of an open relationship. I mean, it's not really. And I'm actually kind of surprised at how many people like in the porn space are like very rigidly monogamous. Not that there's anything wrong. I mean, again, to each their own. I certainly do not think that like non-monogamy is like, what is it? I feel like every once in a while you'll hear someone being like, oh, polyamory is like a more evolved way of thinking. I
Not for me.
absolutely no, and I absolutely do not subscribe to that philosophy on it. I totally think it's just like a decision that people make. But just on paper, I was a little bit surprised that like more people that were involved in porn, but still like totally like traditional in these other ways. Which again, nothing wrong with it, just didn't expect it.
Well, there's a lot of unexpected things. There's some people that are wildly conservative in this space too.
Which also kind of blows my mind.
That blows my mind more than the monogamy thing, really.
No, 100%. Monogamy is not really what monogamy is totally just a decision that people are making.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people are making that decision uninformed. They're making that decision because society says.
That's what, 100%. And that was definitely like a big part of why, or a big part of like the evolution of the thought process that like Cammie and I went through as we became non-monogamous. Growing up, you just don't know a different version of it, right? Yeah. So even if you grow up and you get like twinges of feelings, I feel like you're more likely to just tamp them down because you think like,
that's wrong.
That's wrong.
That's my person. How could I,
Exactly. That there's something like fundamentally wrong about it. That's the better way to put it. That there's something fundamentally wrong with it versus is it just like what meshes correctly with you, right? Are you making the decision because you think it is immoral, I don't know why I said that, unethical, immoral, somehow wrong to be non-monogamous? Or is it just what works for you to be monogamous, right? Because ultimately, again, I'm not sitting here trying to imply that everybody's life would be improved by being non-monogamous, but it's interesting to think about how many relationships or marriages even would be like solved if all they did was kind of remove this shackling of putting such a hang up on sex and let each other explore within the context of it doesn't mean that you don't still love each other. I mean, you still have this, like, depending on how you define your polyamory and what version of it you're doing, I mean, you can still have this like core relationship or whatever. I mean, even in just trying to think about ways that people would even imagine it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those things where like, for me personally, I am all about ethical non-monogamy, not about polyamory, because I'm not looking.
And that's already like, right. So I'm like super guilty of not being like hyper in on like the exact definitions because to me, they're like kind of the same.
Well,
even though I know that they're literally not the same.
The way I look at it is, okay, polyamory means I'm romantically involved with multiple people, right?
Sure.
I just don't have the bandwidth to be emotionally invested in multiple people.
And that's a good point. So that's even like where Cammie and I guess, differ subtly. Well, we don't differ. It's just like the experiences we've had. She has been more on the polyamorous end of the spectrum. I've, I guess, just been more on like the ethical non-monogamy end of the spectrum, but not really for any good reason. It's not like I don't think I have the bandwidth to be romantically involved with multiple people. I just haven't been. I don't know. It's like, so I mean, whatever. I mean, it's like you come to your own conclusions about how you feel about like both of them, but it's like you still don't necessarily know the degree to which you're wanting to experience it until those experiences happen for you, right?
Oh, definitely. And it's one of those things where like it's an individual taste preference too.
100%.
Like, whoever you and your primary partner are, like, as long as you're on the same page and you're not hurting anyone, who the fuck cares?
For sure. No, and again, it's not like right. I mean, because I certainly don't. It's 100% what works best for us, and a big part of what we were thinking about, because it kind of happened like at the same time as us deciding to work with other people.
Walk me through it.
Yeah. No. So it's because it's like I was the only guy in her content. I had my solo stuff. She had me and solo stuff. Like, and that was what the deal was. But then it's like, I was like pretty much out of the Army at that point. She had some things pop off. Her career was really starting to look in the direction of like, she could do studio stuff if she wanted to. And that was definitely something that she as a personal goal had in mind. But then we kind of had to, reckon with this, like, so are we going to work with just each other forever? Are we going to be like a couple, or are we going to work with or are you going to work with other people? And at first it was just, are you going to work with other people?
Why were you willing to make that sacrifice?
I just didn't see it as a sacrifice.
Okay.
Well, so at the time, again, like at the time, I rationalized it as a business decision, right? And like I said, had experiences in my life and been in situations in my life where I'd already kind of experienced sexually liberated individuals and non-standard relationship dynamics. And so it was like I'd been exposed to those and I'd kind of dipped my toes in versions of it. So the idea of her working with another guy just didn't bother me as long as it was for work at the time, right? So that was where I was at the time. But then it was sort of like the way you're doing this like mental gymnastics as you're both trying to like get through this together. At the time, then it was sort of like, well, we'll make it really okay because I'll start working with other people also. And that was when I started doing collab content. And in hindsight, it was a little bit of like a tit for tat kind of like negotiation that we had. It was like, oh, well, you're going to work with other people. So because you're working with other people, you'll work with other people. And that'll make it super okay. Right. And in hindsight, we're definitely still just like circling around this, elephant in the room of like, both of us would probably rather just have the option to be with other people from time to time. And the thing that really kind of like solidified that for us is like, we're both kind of like looking back at past relationships and being like, I mean, like certain, like the types of people that were like, 3 months into a relationship, it like didn't matter how much I liked the person, like anything about them. It was just like something would just kind of die in me where it was just like, I couldn't like stay interested in someone for very long. And I had a relationship that lasted way longer than that, but they always felt like they ended up like bitter and kind of resentful and stuff like that. And so Cammie happened to also kind of like share that history and way that she like perceived relationships that she'd been in. And luckily, the lucky thing about it is that at any other point in our lives, this would have been the moment, like so many relationships before, where it just fell apart, right? But we both just happened to be coming to these conclusions roughly in parallel with one another, and have like the self-awareness and the vocabulary and the understanding of what the other person was able to speak on to bring it up and have this conversation where we're like, this relationship might not last unless we kind of like make a decision and do something. And this was after we'd been working with people for a little bit and kind of realizing that like that wasn't quite solving the issue the way that we kind of hoped that it would. But we both were like, it was like one person said something and the other person was immediately like, I've been thinking the same thing and I feel the same way. And so it was just like very, very copacetic and very like.
Who broached it first?
Her. But again, it was sort of like she was able to put it into words slightly before I was. But as soon as she put it into words, it was sort of like,
the light bulb went off and
what are we doing? Like, why are we being so weird about this? Because at first it's like you even put up weird little boundaries as far as like, what are you going to do when you work with people? Which is fine when people do that. I mean, I've worked with people where it's like they have a partner and they don't want to kiss. And it's like that to each their own. I have no issue with it. But when we kind of self-analyzed why we were developing these boundaries, they were pretty arbitrary. And they were really just like
they always are.
No, for sure. But again, absolutely no hate when people feel like they need to. But we kind of really realized that like we were only putting up these boundaries so that we could exercise like vague levels of control over the situation and just not let go of these like vestiges of
societal norms
and stuff like that. Exactly. And it was the type of thing where it's like, certain doors you walk through that you can't walk back through. Once you've kind of had a thought it forever changes your brain chemistry, and you can't unthink those thoughts and um, untrain your brain away from the conclusion you've just come to. Um, and by the time we had, walked through this many doors together, we then were kind of like left with nothing but these arbitrary boundaries that we'd set, just laid bare. And we're sort of like, what are we doing? Like, why are we being so weird about this? And we were being so weird about it just because we didn't quite know how to make this final step, which was just to, not try to impose this monogamous lifestyle on ourselves when it really wasn't working super well and as soon as we did that, it was like the whole world opened up. It was like we fell back in love with each other to a degree. I mean, it was like um so yeah, if it hadn't gone that way, I mean, this is one of the things people kind of, it's like, well, what if you meet someone and they, don't want to be with you anymore? Or what if that decision had like not worked out very well? And it's sort of like, well, if any of those things had caused the relationship to end, then the relationship wouldn't have lasted.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, and that kind of goes back to one of the other things I mentioned. It's like, how long do people drag out relationships? I mean, that either they just needed to end or something like this might have solved them, but nobody would really come to this conclusion because it's so atypical.
That's the problem with relationships. Like, people try to hold on to them too fucking tightly.
Right.
It's, as we talked about off air, it's like, I was a PI for a little while.
Yeah.
I'd have friends be like, I think my girl's cheating on me. Can you go pull surveillance on her? And I went, you have no property or children. No.
Right.
Like, you don't trust her. It doesn't matter what I find. You don't trust her. Walk the fuck away.
100%.
If you don't have trust in your relationship, just walk the fuck away. The only reason you should ever be in marriage or relationship counseling or anything like that is that you have property or children together and it'll be a goddamn nightmare to separate.
Right, for sure.
But if you don't have those things together, fucking walk the minute it's not working.
Right. No, 100%. And so that's like, I mean, that's, I think, the hardest thing for people to kind of like wrap their heads around is sort of like, are you guys playing with fire by inviting too much potential for the relationship to end? And it goes back to what you just said. I mean, how much do you trust them?
Yeah.
How much do you trust them to make decisions with both of your best interest in mind, even if the decision is a pretty personal decision, which is like, say, something that they want to do with a person that is completely unrelated to you. It's still like you still are making decisions kind of with the other person. Yeah, right. So it's like, if all of a sudden they made some decision that was absolutely hurtful and like malicious or totally with disregard to your emotional well-being, then it would be like, oh, well,
time to go.
Exactly. Right. But the more you do it and the more you experience it and the more things you do together in that context, either the better or worse that trust gets. In our case, the trust has just seemed to improve. So it's like,
it's one of those things I've said 100 times. I will say it till probably the day I die. It's not the physical act of cheating that hurts.
Right.
It is the violation of trust.
100%.
And it's just like, well, if we're discussing this and we're both on the same page of this, there's no trust violated.
Yeah.
I mean, for fuck's sake.
Right.
If you go receive a massage from some hot masseuse,
right.
What sane partner would give a fuck about that? But that's an attractive person giving you, a good physical sensation.
Yeah. No, for sure. Right. And it's like, if you really turn the mirror around on someone and make them analyze the decisions they make and the reasons that they have certain feelings, it's a lot of it is stuff that they can't explain why they feel this way. Why is this okay? Why is that not okay?
Because they've been indoctrinated by society on a lot of it.
100%.
Well, I mean, we have, how there's just the toxic end of society where it's like women are seen as prizes for the hero to win.
Well, and that's a big thing. Like, one of the ways that Cammy's put it, that is for sure one of the better ways to conceptualize like the sex aspect of it specifically. And it's just that in general, people view having sex with someone as an expression of ownership over that person. And I don't mean that in such dramatic terms as like, literal ownership, but like ownership over their attention, ownership over their time, over ownership, micro ownerships, if you
Yeah,
will, I guess.
there's an increased expectation of
Yeah.
their responsibility now because we've rubbed genitals.
But somehow sex is the thing that specifically dictates that connection and ownership with people. Where, I mean, as soon as you start having sex with people on camera, it's like that erodes pretty quickly. I mean, it did for us. I know it doesn't for other people, whatever.
It should.
Sure, but like that eroded that so quickly for us, where it was like overnight, it felt like the act of having sex with someone was not that serious to us. And
Well,
as soon as that no, sure, but as soon as that erodes, it's like, well, do we still have a meaningful connection? If the answer is yes, then that wasn't the thing that made it that way. And but then you think, like, how many people totally depend on that in order to feel like they have any dominion over their partner's attention and love or whatever, whatever.
So gross though. I mean, yes,
it's gross to like put it in terms, but it's literally the normal way people think.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things in life where if you take a step back and look at them logically,
100%,
they're gross as shit.
I think. Well, but I also, it's like that's the funny thing about like therapy to me. I think it's like half the time the therapist isn't even really telling you anything. They're just giving you an opportunity for you to hear yourself out loud and realize how illogical the thought you just had in your head sounds when you say it out loud, right? So it's like, as soon as people, think about things or say them out loud or realize that it's not that difficult to realize how illogical a lot of the thought processes that you have are.
Oh yeah.
And then once you realize it, you kind of can't go back from that.
Pro tip out there. It's much cheaper than therapy to start a podcast.
Yeah, right.
I'm kidding. Please don't. Please don't. We don't need more of us.
For sure. Right.
There's a lot of hypocrisy out there. There's just a lot of societal norms that have been ingrained for people. Because women were property not that long ago in human history.
Sure. Right.
I mean, hell, what year did women get the right to vote in the U.S.? Hell, in 1974, a woman couldn't open her own bank account without her husband or father.
Wild.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's in our parents' lifetime.
No, 100%. Yeah. So, and it's like, that's why I definitely don't like fault people for not like leaping all the way to these conclusions within that kind of time frame. But I am just I'm happy that I got the opportunity to come to those conclusions myself. And ultimately just very happy that part of that evolution landed me in this kind of job where I don't really have a boss. I get creative control over these like interesting artistic endeavors that I, like to do. I get to meet very cool people, and if I had been so if stuck in these, the societal norms and the traditional mindsets, I don't know that any other job that I ever could have stumbled into could ever have made me feel so completely like satisfied. And that satisfied in the sense of, like I said, like control over my day. I get artistic expression, like these basic things that you take for granted when you work a traditional job, that you take for granted because everybody has a boss. Everybody has to clock in. Everybody has to do things they don't want to do.
Everyone has to contribute to their 401k.
Exactly. Everybody has to do overtime for no pay. But then as soon as you do something where it's like every extra bit of effort you put into it directly translates into personal growth or either professional growth, technical growth, or financial gain. It's like you can't imagine doing something else where it's like you're just clocking in no matter how hard you work. You still just clock out at the end of the day. You're doing a lot more work than someone above you so that they can take a nicer vacation than you. And at the end of the day, none of it really means anything.
Well, for sure. I mean, hell, none of this means anything.
None of this means anything either, but at least, right. So in the context of nothing really means more than people assign value to it, why do something that you aren't at least in like control of?
I wholeheartedly agree. Obviously, we're
Sure.
sitting here doing
No,
this.
100%. Yeah, we're preaching to the choir, just this echo chamber of the choir.
Well, and the thing about it is, like, I also readily acknowledge that society needs those people that want to punch a clock, that have no ambition.
No doubt.
Like, I want my fucking pizza.
Everybody can't do this because society would fall apart, 100%. But
there are some things that are a little liberating about the person punching the clock is at 5 o'clock, they don't have to give a fuck anymore.
no, for sure. Right. And it's definitely not like you go back to the question you asked earlier when I was being so overthinking about what I was saying and so slow about my thoughts. It's like, yeah, no, it's nice to imagine leaving and not having to worry about like, oh shit, I forgot to do a TikTok today. I need to, go throw that together. Or I forgot to organize my Dropbox. I've been meaning to do that. Oh, I need to, edit these photos and like all these things that kind of like pile up on each other. And as hard as you try to task organize, they do end up just dominating.
Well, yeah. And that's why the most successful creators have teams.
No, 100%. Sure. Right. You can only expect yourself to do so much. If everyone was doing this, nothing, the rest of society would for sure. Obviously, there would be no one to do the things that you take for granted when you do stuff like this. So it's like,
I mean, we live in LA. Our roads aren't great already, but like, imagine everyone's like, fuck working construction.
Yeah. No, 100%. But okay. So that's totally beside, I've, obviously, I think it's not a profound statement to say that people still need to do construction. But
whoa, I thought that was super deep.
Exactly. What I think is the deep thought that we are trying to mine out of this topic is that in the context of no one thing is any more ultimately meaningful than another, and these are all just decisions that we're making, and how someone earns money, as long as it's, legal and consensual, shouldn't be one.
Honestly, I don't even care. Well, consensual is important. Legal,
oh, sure.
At the end of the day, as long as you're not,
that was a really specific. Yeah.
As long as the people aren't actually harming someone else.
I misspoke because I totally agree with that. Nobody should take it too personally that you want to do this. And if there wasn't such animosity between the people that didn't choose to do this and the people that do this, that would be the thing that, if it could normalize, would really even out.
Do you have some people that have animosity towards you from your former life about this?
No.
Well, you're lucky.
No, sure. And trust me, I don't take that for granted. Because it doesn't need to be that way. I just got kind of lucky. I mean, really, the only person that has found out in definitive terms is one of my best friends, and he was just super stoked about it. So that was great. But no, what I'm talking about is just like the societal animosity. In general, the vibe that someone who works a regular job has against a stranger who has no impact on them that decided to do something like this as their job. If that animosity just wasn't there, because the person that chose the regular job was able to accept that this person, again, is just trying to make a paycheck, and they're probably making something that this person secretly consumes quite a bit of.
In that case, also, it's just like they have it in their mind that this isn't actually labor intensive. And like some creators, if they really thought about it, like your dollars per hour, like what you made per hour per actual labor you put in, you might be making less than some people with some office drones.
Right.
But this isn't real work. Like, fuck you, dude. No, this is a lot of work and unstructured. There are rough guides on how to be successful at this, but it's not like, oh, hey, if I do this fast track, I will be, a manager at some point, and then I will be a VP, and then I will be like,
right. No, and people definitely, yeah. I mean, you only see the product.
Yeah.
So you don't see how the hot dog's made, right? You just see the hot dog. And in this case, yeah, how the hot dog's made is a bunch of embarrassing TikTok dances and strategizing how to get people to even care that you made this content. It's the bitterest, hardest pill to swallow, is knowing that you could be putting out the most phenomenal content anyone has ever seen, but just making the content doesn't get anyone to look at it. Right? So all of that legwork for promotion is really the meat and potatoes of this job, but it is absolutely just like so much more effort than people assume.
Or being so emotionally invested in something that you made and then having everyone not give a complete fuck about it.
Sure.
Like, it's like, oh, I thought that was awesome. And then like, oh, nobody engaged with this. Nobody cared about it.
But then it comes back to that, and then it comes back to that person, because it was like, were they unable to market it? Then they shouldn't feel bad that no one watched it, because just putting something on the internet doesn't hit like a global explore page for everyone to see, right?
Well, I can tell you in my own personal experience doing this, like I've had some guests on that like I was amazingly stoked about it.
Yeah.
And because they were guests that are not necessarily in adult entertainment, not my normal guests, my audience gave zero fucks about it.
Sure.
And it was just like, oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was so stoked about this guest. And I'm very proud of that content. And it's just like, the audience gave no fucks.
Sure. Yeah, right. And that's like, I mean, that's a different pitfall of once you already have an audience. I guess I was more maybe getting at even getting an audience in the first place.
But it's still to illustrate, like, even if you have some degree of success at it, not everything you do is going to be a fucking hit.
No, for sure. Right. And then it all boils, right. And then what kind of resolve do you have to continue to, work past that first failure, for lack of a better way to put it? Failure in your head, surely it'll feel like a failure, even if it wasn't like really a failure.
Oh no, I blame my audience on that one. That episode was awesome.
Sure. Right. But then it goes back to, what do people think you do?
Right.
And they don't see all of that, and you worrying about all of that, and trying to not only strategize about how you're going to promote your content, but strategize your content to optimize how it's received by your audience. I mean, you've got to be doing the job of 12 people between marketing, promotion, audience analysis, like crowdsourcing and producing and editing and all of this. Like, a fleet of people would do the job that you have to do in a more traditional setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Nobody gets that. So when they see you making good money, seemingly just having sex on camera every once in a while, that's where the animosity comes from.
100%. Because in their mind, oh, I could do that.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, I could do that.
Right.
Oh,
Well, that's the thing that kind of blew my mind once I got into this. It's like, even the difference between people that just do like studio porn and people that do independent OnlyFans porn, right? I mean, like, these are even two vastly different experiences.
Well, I look at it like being a YouTuber versus being on television or being in a movie.
Sure. And I guess once upon a time, I guess the way I see it get presented kind of implies that like doing studio porn is the goal, like the logical, obvious goal.
Just like mainstream Hollywood, like being on mainstream television or mainstream film is more prestigious than being on YouTube. Even if
but okay, so that's what I was going to say. And once upon a time, the prestige came with the money and the success.
Yeah.
But now the money and the success exists on this other platform also. So one is not necessarily a logical conclusion of the other, as far as like, you are only doing this so that you can eventually transition over into that, which is where then I come back to like, they're kind of unrelated. And ultimately, like, an actor that shows up for a TV show shows up, is told what to do, is given the lines. They're expected to perform very well, and that's its own set of challenges and requires a highly skilled individual to take that input and produce what the director intends, right? Not everybody can do that. The flip side to that coin is that not everybody can be their own producer, their own marketer, get people to watch their content, convince people to want to make content with them, and be charismatic organically when you're trying to develop a fan base, right? So just another aspect of this that like, and so obviously plenty of people can do both, but some people can only do one of them.
The creme de la creme can do both.
Sure.
There's 2 million OnlyFans creator accounts.
Right. The overwhelming majority of them will not ever.
Yeah. The average OnlyFans creator on the bell curve makes $160 a month.
Yeah. Right.
OnlyFans is just like every other form of entertainment. The people towards the top are making a lot of fucking money. And
so the difference is more people are doing OnlyFans. The majority of them are not making enough money to even meaningfully dent their weekly expenses.
100%.
Much fewer people are doing studio porn because there's
a lot less studio porn being made.
There's a lot less studio porn being made, and there is a higher bar for entrance. Because anyone can just make an OnlyFans.
Right. Some gatekeeper has to sign off on you.
Someone has to. Yeah, exactly. But then there is a lower echelon of that, of the people that just, barely start doing it. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I guess, why am I even bringing this up?
Don't second guess yourself. It's a good topic.
I'm not second guessing myself. I had a point, but I don't remember how it ties into anything that we were saying before. There's all this animosity this is kind of it. I don't remember.
Yeah, animosity from the civilian world.
Animosity from the civilian world. We certainly don't need animosity within the adult creator space.
Unfortunately, that exists too.
And that exists too, because there is this kind of like animosity to it. Again, I've never experienced it personally. So
I've definitely had studio performers on here, say that purely OnlyFans creators are not porn stars.
And that really depends on how much you even care about that nomenclature. Because I mean, like, do I call myself a porn star? No, but like that me not calling myself a porn star doesn't make me feel any less successful. Because again, they're two different jobs. The way I'm seeing it.
And also,
being a porn star is if you want to call it only doing studio porn and being successful at studio porn, fine. I mean, I don't call a YouTuber like a movie star either. Even if this YouTuber is making feature-length fiction YouTube videos, I still don't call him a movie star. So sure, if an OnlyFans creator is calling themselves a porn star, first off, their fans don't know the difference. So are they talking to you, the other creator? Are they lording that term over you, the studio performer, to somehow make you peers? Or are they talking to their fans? Because
it's a marketing gimmick at that point.
Because as far as their fans are concerned, they make porn. And from their fans' point of view, they are a star at doing that. So whatever. I mean, it's
well, and also one of the things I wanted to touch on that you said there for a second is success is also measured however you as an individual want to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
What you view as successful and I view as success could be completely separate things.
Totally. But even if you just put success in very like objective, kind of universally agreeable terms, which is just to say, are you making enough money to live off of your decisions?
No.
Well, no. But I guess the people that are porn stars make enough money that's all they have to do.
Well, except the problem is I know people that are almost purely studio performers because they don't have the hustle, they don't have the drive to actually run an OnlyFans, that are barely getting by scene to scene.
Sure.
Like it's all very subjective. It's all a lot of cases a fucking illusion too.
Well, right. And I guess how many of those people would call themselves a porn star? Maybe that's a fight that the studio side of porn needs to have within itself. Because again, like the people that are at the top of OnlyFans don't necessarily like worry, I think, too much about the people at the bottom end of OnlyFans. Like,
well, why would they?
Why would they? So if ultimately, just looking at Twitter and really trying my hardest to not get involved with drama, it's like the people that are doing really well are never involved. They're never putting these opinions out. And it's like, I kind of tell myself, like, every time I like want to say something, I was like, I'll look at like, well, did this person get involved? No, probably because they're busy worrying about their own stuff, right?
Well, it's the same reason like why trolls exist on any content.
100%.
It's like, because you don't have shit better going on in your life than to try to make a stranger feel like shit.
100%. But then I guess, and ultimately, I just think like the big fallacy about the animosity in general is just that like, does the person who does studio porn think that this OnlyFans creator using the term porn star invalidates their success in a way that's actually like negatively impacting them?
They shouldn't, but there's unfortunately a lot of trauma in this industry too.
No, for sure.
And like some of these responses are trauma responses. Some of these are like irrational fucking responses.
Exactly. And I don't, and that's why it's like, you can't get too upset with people when they have their moments, because you don't, unless you know every detail about what inspired that. To your point, you don't know. Why are they worried about that? Why does it mean so much to them? Why are they seeing everybody in such competition as though there isn't like literally enough money to go around? To the point where they feel like threatened, or why would an OnlyFans creator who's making a lot of money care that much about being put down by this other person? I mean, just to make it go both ways. You know
Oh yeah,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
And yeah, you don't know everything about that person. So it's like, you don't get too hung up about it. But at the same time, it's like, you're already kind of like on the fringe. I mean, not to be too dramatic sounding about it, but we're already on the fringe of society.
Oh no, we are.
For sure. Like,
I mean, that's not being dramatic.
No,
that's
okay.
real. That is
like,
very fucking real.
This is already the fringe of society. Like, we would all do better if we all were excited that we were in this together to
For sure.
a degree, right? And I don't like that's so optimistic, and how new is he? And he's only been XYZ. Well, I'm 34. You know, I've been around the life as an adult. And so no, yeah. And that's kind of the other thing that gets me is like, okay, yeah, you've been doing this job longer, or you've been doing studio porn longer. A lot of the things that you're saying, and a lot of the aspects of this career that you're kind of commenting on or taking personally exist in analogous ways in every industry.
Oh,
you know, so just being an adult doesn't, you know, having just an adult's perspective on other adults existing in any industry, nothing about it being porn makes it any more difficult to like see and analyze.
for sure. And that's the double-edged sword of this industry. It's like, at 18, you're a consenting adult, so you can choose to do porn. Are 18-year-olds really emotionally equipped in some cases?
Right.
To come here and really be part of this very complex industry that is on the fringes of society. Like, everyone who's really consciously chose to be here has decided that, like, we don't really give a fuck about what society says.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And
well, and are they ready to deal with the ramifications of making that jump?
right.
Yeah.
Because every time I have a civilian friend who, well, over the years, I've had a bunch of civilian friends hit me up like, I'm thinking about getting into porn. And every time I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Right. I try to talk people out of sex work every time they come to me.
Sure.
Because it's just like, you need to fully understand all the negatives that come with this before you make that jump. Because there is no guarantee that you're going to be successful. And the negatives come if you're successful or not.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I 100% am just like, I'm obviously not against sex work in any way, shape, or form, but I want people to make a fucking informed choice.
No, 100%. Yeah. No, and it's definitely like a weird vibe now. I mean, even in just the amount of time that I've been involved with it, I feel like, especially with Twitter, it's just like, it's become a weird, people's implementations of Twitter has become a little bit odd to me. Only in the sense that I have only ever personally seen my Twitter as a means to promote my content. But obviously, a lot of people use Twitter as a social media app. Well, putting your, I guess, how do I want to, I'm going to talk myself down a weird rabbit hole with that. Very specifically, I only see Twitter to you like as a means to promote my porn and my brand, right? So I just think it's a little bit odd when people put too much of their personal drama on their Twitter, which is also promoting their porn. Because on the one hand, I'm like, do your fans want to see that? Or is that just what your fans like? I mean,
it's part of the lack of guidance in this industry.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, it's just like, oh, well, I can say this thing. Not necessarily should I say this thing.
Right. So it's like, I'm sure your fans don't really care about this animosity that you have with this other creator.
But also,
so how much is it doing for you to put it out there? But it just muddles the...
But it's also like them, quote, being real
Yeah.
How much does that influence their fan base? Like, oh shit, I have a better gauge of who this person I masturbate to is as a person when they react to shit.
And how people interact with their fans is totally their prerogative. Like nothing about my perception of how someone is on their Twitter. I don't know what they're so if that's what it is, more power to them. You know,
I mean, some of it's not a conscious decision either.
Get your bag, right? Like by all means, but it's when it muddles the vibe between other creators then, where it's like someone will say something and maybe they were just saying it for shock value because their fans like them to be shocking.
I know nothing about this.
I know, right? But then it like totally upsets all these creators and they come and rain. It's like, and then like all these opinions are formed and like,
but also how much of that is a fucking act too? Like how much are people just doing outrage bait? They're just posting something.
Definitely.
Just posting something like, oh shit, the negative attention still affects the algorithm.
Right.
They'll still show my shit to more people.
Right. Which if everybody was just using Twitter for promotion, it would be like, oh, that's promotion. That's a promotion tactic. Good for them. But not everybody does. It's like this weird kind of, it's this.
Well, yeah, but if everyone did do it for promotion, it wouldn't be effective as outrage bait because they're just like, oh, they're trying to get a rise.
But I think their fans would still react to it. Whatever. I mean, who knows? Because that's an impossible hypothetical.
Well, yeah, we can't just restart Twitter and be like,
no, right.
Promotions only.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's damaging to the ecosystem.
My question is, why do you not want your audience to have more of a feel of who you are as a person? Like comment on.
Oh, I feel like I do. I mean, especially being faceless, I felt like I got really good at putting my personality out there. But me just putting my personality out there, I guess, isn't very inflammatory. So that's just my...
Be more controversial, damn it.
That's right, yeah. So that's just my version of it. And maybe it's been limiting in ways that I'm not even fully able to appreciate because I haven't been controversial enough, maybe. But so that's just me. That's my own unique experience with what I think works with my fans based on my analysis of my own fan base. And again, so that's what makes it hard for me to think too hard about decisions that other people are making. But it's just... The one thing that's undeniable is how it seems to affect the mood in general amongst other creators.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the death by court of public opinion and all that sort of shit. Because, like, people dogpile on shit without any, like, say, I like you. You're a cool guy. You say something that, like, is shitty about someone else that you had a bad experience with. And your bad experience could be 100% legitimate.
Yeah.
The amount of people that, because they like you, will pile on that person without taking a step back and being like, let's take a critical look at this. Was this a misunderstanding? Was this legitimately the other person being shitty? Like,
yeah.
And that is also part of the problem with, Twitter in general, but especially adult Twitter. Like,
right.
I personally sometimes have to stop myself from interjecting. Like, someone talks some shit about some people I am fond of fairly recently, and they posted screenshots, and it's just like, those screenshots are missing some very critical information to the narrative here.
Right.
But I watched in the replies just people piling on this person, and
sure.
It's just like, I get that you want to defend the person you like, but it's not good for anyone here.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like, it was an inevitable evolution of the Twitter space with the introduction of so many independent creators. I can only imagine when it was just studio people. It was mostly just studios posting stuff.
No, studio creators definitely were involved, but you got to remember also Twitter worked differently at that point.
Right.
You only saw the people you were subscribed to. You weren't being. You weren't being.
I wasn't even on Twitter back then, so I wouldn't know.
I've been on Twitter since 2009.
Yeah, right.
I'm old. Please don't look at my Twitter before 2011. Please don't. It's really bad.
But so, and it's also just like, the other side of that is that you worry about like, misinformed young creators. But then you've also got people that started OnlyFans during the pandemic who were already adult professionals. And so those people come in and they are very confident in themselves, what they're doing, how they're presenting themselves, and their business tactics. So then when somebody else from a different aspect of the adult community, like, questions their validity, they're already an adult that was just making good business decisions and got successful on it. So, I mean, even that, it's like, even where there's no like kind of immature, misguided tweeting, there's still this like weird potential for people butting heads when they don't need to.
Jealousy is an ugly thing.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I-
I just imagine it's just like, I feel like I'm sounding too idealistic, but
Is that necessarily a bad thing?
no, right. I mean, whatever. I haven't heard anyone else say it so far. So I guess I'll, if I'm going to say anything that I feel like has substance with regards to the creator space at large, I feel like this is the thing I'm going to say.
Whoa. We don't do substance around here. We do substances, not substance.
Yeah, excellent. Right. Here for that.
No. But how do we change it? Like, how do we, as a community, as a group, make those changes? Even attempt to?
Well, you hope it doesn't take things getting really bad before. I mean, unfortunately, I think people like require the shock of something to realize that like, oh, we need to calm down a little bit. So you hope that like the shock of these scenarios maybe calms people down from rage posting or attacking, lashing out at other creators over relatively inane things like whether or not they're calling themselves a porn star. That people can realize that like every time something like flares up and it looks ugly and then everyone calms down for a second, that they can just remember how good it felt after we all calmed down for a second.
But some people live for the drama.
No, 100. Yeah, right. No, and there's no helping those people because you can't change those people. I don't know. What is there an answer for this?
No, that's what I'm asking.
There isn't an answer.
I've been around this for over a decade. I got no fucking answers on this.
There's definitely not an answer for this. I'm idealistic in certain ways, but I'm a realist in many more ways than that. And I certainly don't have a lot of faith that it's going to resolve itself anytime soon.
Oh no.
So at the end of the day, it's like you look at who's not involving themselves in the drama, and you look at how well they seem to be doing. Not universally, obviously, plenty of very successful people get involved in drama, but
generally in a lot of cases, it's when someone comes for them directly. It's not like they're not interjecting themselves into someone else's drama.
That is how it seems. Right. And it's kind of like the news too. It's like, the news will show you bad news, but because it was on the news, you'll assume it's more common than it was. Oh, yeah, shootings and the break-ins and anything about crime, really.
100%.
Because it's on the news, you think it's worse than it is. So it's kind of the same thing with Twitter. I think you see these flare-ups and you think it's worse than it is, but you kind of forget the overwhelming majority of people are not engaging in it.
100%. On the crime news thing, like, people are just like, oh my God, major cities are fucking hellscapes. It's just like, do you know what LA's murder rate was in the 90s?
Exactly.
Like, LA's actually relatively safe.
For sure.
It's just one of those things, like, because of News, Citizen app, that we have the wealth of human knowledge in our pocket constantly informing us, people just get it in their heads that like shit's horrible.
Right, for sure.
I mean,
so the comparison with that is that obviously two creators get into a super public, confrontation with one another on Twitter, and everybody thinks like, oh shit, the creator space is in tatters. Never mind the fact that how many thousands of people are just being about their business and not worrying about it.
Yeah, like they ain't got time to worry about other.
Yeah, most people absolutely don't have time to worry about it. That's an absolute fact.
Like, the only time I get involved is because I'm trying to drive engagement to my own shit.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
And I had someone DM slide me last week and get really shitty with me about it. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Got really shitty. I'm just like, I just responded with emojis.
There you go.
Because I'm like, this is a drive engagement for me to respond
to
real on this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're upset about something I retweeted? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's just the silliness, like unhinged shit in my DMs because of something I retweeted.
No, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. And then it's how much does it get to you? I mean, obviously it doesn't seem to get to you particularly badly, right? But then that also comes with being, An adult, mature.
Whoa, I'm one of those things.
Mature to a degree, because if you were not mature, it would get to you, right?
Well, yeah, but as I've said multiple times on here, that was a developed muscle.
Sure.
Like,
oh, absolutely. No, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it comes with experience. And when I say maturity, I really just mean like life experience.
Well, it's just also me taking a step back and consciously thinking about like, why the fuck am I bothered by someone I don't respect's opinion?
Right. Yeah.
Like, especially because that's someone I know in real, like trolls. I don't know you. Why would I?
Yeah, that's
this is someone in real life I know and don't respect. So I definitely am not going to be bothered by like what they have to say. It's like, don't like you. Why do you think you have any emotional control over me?
Yeah, no kidding. Right. And we'll never, right. And most of these people will never have like a meaningful interaction in real life. And I know that there is obviously like a concern that like, if someone is particularly successful, that they can affect how you're perceived within any space. But that's true about anything.
Yeah.
Like, again, it seems more extreme because it's the adult space and it's like, it's porn. So but all of these things apply to every other avenue and aspect of life.
Hell, my only concern in that whole situation was that person was going to make a scene at the AVN party. That was my only concern.
Right.
And I saw her and she walked right past me.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, oh, real big talking.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right.
And then that's the other crazy part is people aren't willing to actually like talk it out and, have any sort of real, like for the most part, any real confrontation in meat space, in real life.
Sure.
Like the AVN party would have not been the right place to hash out any issues we were having. But it's just like that issue will never actually be hashed out.
Yeah.
There'll never be a place where we're in the same place physically, and that will be discussed. And that's usually how it goes, unless it's crazy, like the fucking shit that went down in XRCO.
Yeah.
You heard about that, right?
Well, no, clearly. If it's not coming to mind, I thought I would pull that out of my mind, right?
A performer confronted another performer about some tweets and a fist fight ensued.
Oh, yes. I am 100% aware of what. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Right. Sure. But as far as I know, that blew over to all these things blow over.
Well,
I mean, to a degree.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, even things that I feel like shouldn't blow over seem to blow over. I mean, like at the end of the day, it seems like unless a crime has been committed.
Oh, even then.
But that's what I mean. I say that even then, but it's like, even then it's like, as big as people are willing to talk, it really doesn't seem like anyone ever reaps any consequences of anything.
No, the only way to actually get canceled in this industry is be abusive to animals.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
I mean,
fair enough.
Justifiably so, but
there
was this might have been before your time, but there was a male creator who poured water on another performer's blind dog.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not cool. It's not cool. It's not justified.
Right.
But holy fuck, he was canceled faster than people that have sexual assault allegations against them.
Right.
And it's like, that was just water.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Not cool, but the grand scheme.
No, 100%. Yeah. And it's like people, I mean, and I think about that every once in a while with like people that, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been really, on the spectrum of things I've heard about, I feel like I've been really lucky. I absolutely have never worked with anyone that I got even like a bad taste in my mouth about after I worked with them. So, and I know that happens to people. Like, I'm certainly not trying to say that it's overinflated, but because I know it's not. I just know that I'm lucky. I mean, lucky.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time, sure. And I've absolutely been. I'm no illusions about that. But as of now, nothing crazy has happened that has made me feel bad about a person I've worked with. But so many of these issues that people have with people are just like opinions based off one-off, like things that happen with them. If someone comes to me and they're like, oh, you worked with that person. Well, this, that, and the other thing about them because I said this and they said that. And I'm like, okay, but did they like hurt you? Or do you just not like them? So it's even like trying to suss out like how good a person is someone to work with. It's like, you got to get good at identifying like, is that person actually like a piece of shit? Or did you, the person who's talking to me, just not get along with them in the one interaction that you had with them?
It's hard to suss out. Like I've over the years, multiple times had people DM me directly after, like, I post the promo picture of doing a show with a guest and being like, why the fuck would you have that person on? They're such a piece of shit. It's just like, okay.
Right.
Why is this the first I'm hearing of this?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a wild place we're at. And all in all, as you were getting at earlier, we should have a unified front because there are much bigger threats, much bigger existential threats 100%. To all of us out there.
Yeah, right. Like, nobody's going to care about who calls who a porn star if everyone makes this, if this gets turned illegal.
Right. Well,
and you've got to flee the country to continue making porn, right?
Well, even if it stays the status quo, fucking banking.
Yeah, sure. Much less extreme versions of things.
Yeah.
Things that have already happened.
Things that, like, the status quo right now, it's like, oh, hey, you may not be able to get a loan. Hey, you may get fired from a Joe job because of it. Like, all these other things, like, we're not presenting a unified front against even that shit.
Yeah, right, for sure. Which, I mean, I don't know. And again, it's like, is there really not a unified front, or does some people just make it seem much less unified than it really is? Because at the end of the day, most people I know feel like they'd be pretty unified with each other.
It's one of those things where, like, it feels like online activism in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh yeah, I support this thing. Are they actually doing anything to actually support this thing besides effectively signing an online petition?
For sure.
So
yeah, who knows?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm merely an asshole riffing on his own podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's one of those things that we should really be examining as a group, as a marginalized group.
Yeah.
As two white men are talking about being a marginalized group. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's gonna get.
Well, you didn't have to say it out loud.
Oh shit, my bad.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. But ultimately that is the case. I mean, we would be lumped in. Everyone would be lumped into the same pool of
same gulag.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And yeah. So yeah, no, whatever. I mean, what's the solution? Who knows? Again, there's probably bigger problems that need solutions anyway. But this is just it's an interesting one that I think that does seem to affect people more than it needs to. And it's just, and it would be such an easy thing just to chill out about. But I mean, whatever.
I'm also curious, and I don't know how we'd go about researching this or how to like fact check it. Is there more drama now because people are less beholden to agents and studios? Because when everyone was all studio performers, if you get real crazy in a public space, you might not have work.
Yeah.
And
I can see that. I mean, why not?
But, if you get mad crazy now, you might just not get invited to parties. It's not going to affect your OnlyFans numbers.
No, 100%. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I only really experienced the OnlyFans side of it. I mean, Cammie obviously does everything, so I passively experienced.
Well, Cammie's not exactly going out here being crazy. So
no, exactly. And she has done both. I mean, as committed and as successful as she's been with studio work, she has experience with both of them, with both sides of it. So it's like she's obviously not, worried about who calls who a porn star and stuff like that. I keep saying that like that's the big thing I'm hung up on, but it's really just the easiest thing to say.
Oh yeah, well, because it's a point of controversy for a lot of people for no really good reason.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But honestly, we've been doing this for over 2 hours.
Oh shit.
So I hate to do it because I think we're really just getting into the fucking meat of it.
Well, I guess there can be a part 2 then, maybe. I guess
maybe you're just like, maybe.
I don't know how badly you want to hear me ramble again. Maybe I'm underselling myself.
Has no one ever told you that's unattractive to be
Oh God, no.
So self-conscious.
Yeah, right. No. Well, I guess I'll get over it then.
You better.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sooner or later the imposter syndrome, I guess, has to be defeated in one way or another, right?
Or just muscle through it.
Right? Or just look back at the list of people you worked with and go, maybe you kind of are supposed to be here, and maybe stop beating yourself up about it. Not thinking you should be where you are.
I don't know, man. Like sometimes I still get it. Like I've been doing this fucking show for it'll be 9 years in fucking March next year, and it's still like, oh yeah, I belong here. Oh yeah, I don't know if it truly goes away, then do become a problem.
Yeah,
At the point where it's just like, oh yeah, I belong. I'm supposed to be here. Like, do you become the problem at that point?
Yeah, no, 100%. Right.
But we're going to call last call. Tell them where they can find you on the things.
On the things. Lev Lieben on OnlyFans, the Lev Lieben on Twitter, the Lev Lieben on Instagram. Those are the only ones that matter.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, no, just doing my best to make content that you want to jerk off to and have fun with, and really not a whole lot else.
Well, welcome to your first podcast.
Yes, that I could super appreciate this.
No, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you showing the audience your face. Until next week, drink up, motherfuckers.
Hell yeah.